Stop for a moment and think with me, because what I'm about to tell you could completely change the way you see yourself and the world around you. If you have the courage to hear me out until the end, you'll discover a hidden power within you that has been silenced your entire life. From childhood, you were manipulated into believing that your desires define who you are, that your impulses shape your identity, that your hunger for pleasure is the measure of your worth. But that was never true. They implanted an invisible narrative in you, a silent script that guides your choices and makes you believe you're free, when in reality, you've been living as a smiling slave, trapped in a game you didn't even write. They convinced you that if you're not constantly chasing pleasure, you're dead. That if you're not validated by someone's gaze, you're worthless. The tragedy is that you believed them. But here's the truth almost no one dares to say. A man enslaved by desire is the easiest to control. While he chases bodies, he forgets his soul. While he seeks approval, others are building empires. You don't need to renounce desire, you need to learn to transform it. You must master the instinct that masters you, because when you redirect your energy, what was once a prison becomes the key to your freedom. A desensitized mind isn't cold, it's powerful. It observes desire, understands desire, but isn't ruled by it. That's when the game starts to change. A man who controls his mind becomes unpredictable, and the unpredictable is dangerous because it cannot be manipulated, bought, or bent by the rules that control the rest of the world. Think about how many decisions you've made just to be admired, how many paths you didn't take out of fear of not being enough, how many times you sacrificed your time, energy, and even money just to win a glance of approval. The worst part? You did it smiling, believing you were living in freedom, when in reality, you were selling pieces of yourself for crumbs. Now imagine a man who spends his entire life seeking validation through appearance. He trains, dresses well, goes into debt, does everything to be noticed. And when he finally gets the look he craved, it vanishes in minutes, because it was never real, never truly his. This cycle is an addiction disguised as masculinity, a prison masquerading as freedom. The question you need to ask yourself is this: if tomorrow no one could desire you, would you still believe you have value? If the answer is no, it means you've built your identity on quicksand, sinking deeper with every passing second. But there's a way out, and it starts in your mind. You need to separate your worth from others' validation. You need to start over from within. And that takes courage because it's like killing a part of yourself that's been fed since the first compliment, since the first ad that taught you being a man means conquering bodies. But the truth is, a real man doesn't conquer others. He conquers himself. That requires discipline, clarity, and mastery over his own instincts. Great leaders, thinkers, and creators have an almost supernatural presence because they've learned this secret. Their minds aren't hijacked by desire, but redirected towards something greater. They didn't deny their impulses, they sublimated them, turning hunger into vision, instinct into creation, desire into legacy. That's why while the world chases fleeting pleasures, they build eternity. Psychology has long said it. The energy you waste on impulses can be transmuted into creative power. This is true mental alchemy, taking the fire that could destroy and using it to build. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a daily war. It's stopping every time you feel the need to impress and asking yourself, why? It's taking a deep breath when the void of validation calls and realizing that void isn't an enemy. It's the starting point of your freedom. A free mind isn't one without desire. It's one that uses desire as fuel instead of a leash. When you learn to do this, your life will never be the same. You'll start walking with a different glow, not because you're trying to draw attention, but because you don't need it. The world always notices when someone is their own master. That's the kind of presence that intimidates and inspires at the same time. No one can explain it, but everyone feels there's power there. That power is the result of a mind that doesn't serve desire but governs it, that doesn't chase approval but chooses its own path, that doesn't sell itself cheap for crumbs, but builds something that endures. You don't need to repress anything. You need to transmute. The same energy that drags you down can be the force that lifts you up. if you choose where to direct it. So tell me, how long will you let others use your instincts as chains? How long will you believe freedom is doing what you want when it's really being unable to say no to yourself? The time has come to break free. The time has come to turn the fire that consumes you into a flame that illuminates. The time has come to decide if you'll be a prisoner of desire or the master of yourself. The power is within you, waiting to be redirected. When that happens, no one will be able to predict how far you can go. You were taught to believe that emptiness is your greatest enemy, that being alone means being defeated, that silence equals failure. But today, I want to open your eyes to a truth few can bear to hear. Emptiness is not destruction. It's fertile ground, the space where you can rebuild yourself without masks, without noise, without chains. The modern man flees desperately from silence because he fears meeting himself. But a mind that learns to inhabit that space becomes dangerous because it doesn't need. And when you don't need, you don't beg. And when you don't beg, no one can use you. Imagine walking the streets without needing to be noticed, without trying to prove anything to anyone, just being whole in yourself. It's like walking above the noise, floating in a world of screams while you remain calm, silent. And that silence unsettles because it reveals. Silence shows you're no longer playing the validation game. It betrays that you've broken the invisible rules that control others. And because of that, many will try to attack you. Your presence exposes their weakness. They'll mock your self-control, call you cold, distant, strange, because the simple fact that you don't kneel to desire destroys their excuses. When you rise, those who crawl feel threatened. This path brings solitude because it's not popular, not celebrated, not applauded. But within you, an unshakable certainty is born, an inner axis that doesn't waver even when everything around you trembles. That's the power of a free mind. It doesn't need to prove anything, doesn't seek approval, doesn't play the game. It simply is. And its existence changes the environment. But the real enemy isn't outside. It speaks within you every day. It's the voice that says it's not worth it, that it's easier to give in, that you'll never make it. The truth is that voice isn't even yours. It's the echo of the world programming you. That voice must be silenced, not with shouts, but with discipline, with daily action, with choices, sharp as blades that cut through every invisible chain holding you back. If you persist, a day will come when you look back and won't recognize who you were. You'll realize that the old you was just a character shaped by expectations. But what's born now is awake. Awakening is brutal. It opens your eyes to see the chains you once called freedom, opens your ears to hear the silence you once feared, and opens your heart to feel a strength that depends on no one. Next time you seek validation, stop in front of the mirror and ask, who's in charge? If the answer isn't you, there's still work to do, because only when the decision is yours are you truly free. This is the power they fear, the power of a mind that doesn't beg, doesn't kneel, doesn't depend. The ultimate power that makes you impossible to manipulate. But who are you really fighting? Not people, not society, not culture. The greatest enemy is the emotional conditioning that hijacked your way of living. This conditioning tied pleasure to approval, self-esteem to desire, and identity to the reflection in others' eyes. That's why so many men are lost, endlessly seeking themselves in external validation. From childhood, you were taught that love is conquered, that worth is measured by attention received, that if you're not desired, you don't exist. The result is a life of endless races chasing reflections that never fill you. But a free mind isn't addicted to reflections. It's learned to look inward and be alone without feeling empty. Because true solitude isn't the absence of company, it's the absence of yourself. Silence isn't dangerous, it's true. And that's exactly why so many flee from it. Silence doesn't lie, doesn't flatter, doesn't offer an edited image. It shows who you are, unfiltered. How many fail because they can't bear this encounter? How many escape to distractions, pleasures, and validations to avoid facing the inner echo? But the secret lies there. In silence is the power you seek. When you stop running and learn to inhabit silence, something extraordinary happens. You start observing instead of reacting. You begin to see patterns, intentions, hidden emotions. For the first time, you play the game as a strategist. You stop being the emotional player driven by impulses and become the chess master moving pieces with clarity. A desensitized mind isn't dead, it's strategic. The world is a board waiting for your moves. Many confuse need with passion, but at its root, it's not love. It's fear, emotional dependency disguised as desire. A dependent man, no matter how strong he seems on the outside, bleeds on the inside. And the world smells that blood. You need to ask not how to conquer, but why you feel the need to conquer. Because if the root is lack, everything you build will be fragile, tainted by the instability of your own emptiness. Freedom begins when you break that dependency and conquer emotional autonomy. When you can walk away without drama, say no without guilt, and don't need applause to feel whole. It's having your peace intact, even without messages, likes, or looks. Modern slavery isn't in iron chains, but in the dependency on notifications, responses, digital reflections that imprison millions. Breaking free is becoming a truly free man. You need to cultivate your inner energy. Learn to sustain your self-esteem based on who you are, not what others say about you. Only then does your presence stop begging and start commanding. This is the next level of the journey. Turning solitude into strength, silence into clarity, autonomy into power. Because whoever controls their inner world cannot be toppled by external chaos. And when you reach that point, there's no going back. You finally understand that freedom isn't doing what you want. It's being able to choose what you don't need. It's walking through the world without being dragged by the noise. A desensitized mind is more than a weapon. It's the ultimate state of true freedom. And the one who reaches this level becomes impossible to ignore because their mere presence is a silent shout of power. Have you ever noticed that everything around you seems to want to buy you, trap you, distract you? But there comes a moment when something inside you awakens and says, enough. Enough of being used, manipulated, controlled. Because when you learn not to depend on anyone's desire in order to exist, the whole world starts looking at you differently. They can't explain it, but they feel it. They feel they can no longer manipulate you. They feel they can no longer bargain with your weakness, and that, in a world full of masks, is a threat. But pay attention. Autonomy is not isolation. It's not cutting ties. It's not living like a cold and distant stone. Autonomy is connection without need. It's being able to be with someone by choice, not out of fear of loneliness. It's giving yourself out of abundance, not out of lack. And that changes everything. Because love that is born out of need is prison, but love that is born out of choice is freedom. And it is exactly in that freedom that you will find the strength to create something new. Because all the energy you save by not begging for attention needs a destination. And here's the secret. A decentralized mind does not empty. It redirects. It reinvests in what matters, purpose, presence, creation. And it is at this point that you discover the brutal truth. Desire is not strength, it is distraction. When you master it, life slows down. You see more. You feel more. You notice details everyone else ignores. A focused man is not one who runs endlessly. A focused man is one who knows exactly where to put his energy. He is selective, precise, relentless. And in a world where everyone is scattered, the selective one wins. Do you want to know what the real superpower is today? It's not shouting louder. It's not accumulating more things. It is sustained tension, the ability to remain present without running away, to keep your gaze steady without distraction, to choose discipline over immediate pleasure. That is what separates empire builders from illusion consumers. But here's the detail most don't understand. The decentralized mind does not kill feelings. It amplifies them. It refines them. It sharpens your intuition, your perception, your clarity. You stop speaking to please and start speaking to transform. You stop acting to impress and start acting to impact. You stop living to prove something and start living to fulfill something greater. And that is revolution. Not a revolution of screams, but of silence that disturbs. Because you stop reacting like a conditioned animal and begin responding like the architect of your own life. And that, my friend, is what the world is not prepared to see. Because you cannot manipulate someone who does not need. You cannot control someone who does not beg. You cannot buy someone who is already complete. And that is why you are not here to fit in. You are here to break the mold. You are here to show that it is possible to live free, to feel without depending, to love without begging. You are here to prove that it is possible to be intense without losing control. This is your role. This is your path. But pay attention. The desensualized mind is not the end. It is the beginning. The beginning of a new way of being in the world, of inhabiting your mind, your body, your time, the beginning of a life without chains. And when you reach that point, you understand why all the pain was worth it. Because you are no longer just surviving, you are truly living, without begging, without hiding, without needing, just you and your will of steel. But here lies the abyss. If you made it this far, it's not by accident. There is something inside you that has already awakened. Something that has been pounding for a long time, asking to come out. And this video is not just a message, it is a mirror. You know it. Because while others are still running away, you are here facing your most brutal reflection. And you must understand, the desensualized mind is not a trend. It is not a pretty philosophy to post online. It is a declaration of war. A war against every chain you accepted as affection, against every dependence you mistook for freedom, against every emptiness you tried to fill with distractions. And now it's no longer about understanding. It's about applying. It's about living. It's about sustaining this fire every single day. Because this will cost you. You will lose people, habits, places. But what you will gain is infinitely greater. You will gain peace. You will gain clarity. You will gain power. The power of not needing anything in order to build everything. And I want you to prove to yourself that you made it this far. Write in the comments right now. Those who don't need, dominate. That will be your seal. Your mark. The proof that you are no longer just another, but someone willing to burn the whole board if necessary. And if this shook you, subscribe. Because here we don't deliver recycled phrases. Here we rip apart every lie that chained you. And here begins your freedom.